Frank, I'm honored to have you here. Frank is a change management expert and he has been working in the change management group for last 20 plus years. He has worked with many industries such as lean startups and also the large enterprises. He has been working as consultant, coach, guide, mentor, and somebody who knows change management inside out. He generally focuses on high performing teams and also coaching leadership. He has co-developed something called as a change canvas. And change canvas is more like a framework or a ways of doing change management in a large organizations or even for a small organization for that matter. So welcome to you, Frank, and thank you for joining us.
Sandeep, thank you very much for having the opportunity that you invited me to this wonderful call, and I'm really looking forward for our conversation. And also the intro that was just perfect. I couldn't have done it better.
Well, thank you, Frank. So Frank, let's start with basic things such as how did you get into this change management and what inspired to get into change leadership and change management?
Well, as you mentioned, over 20 years I'm working in the change field. I was working in a couple of projects at the time. It was around 2000. I had always projects where, and this is even today, where people are impacted by the change. And at the time, I always recognized it could be done somehow better. Less with the management because for them the project was running fine, it's a declared victory. But often I heard from participants, well, or from even from employees, it doesn't work that well. So it was better before. And I want to know more about it and how you can improve change management. So this was the start of a journey where I started coaching education, as well as I did an additional study on psychology, in particular around organizational behavior, because I wanted to know on how people tick, on what drives them in a company, as well as what drives them in moving them forward in a change. So this is on how I started the journey in change management.
So when we talk about change management, how much is management and leadership? What's your experience so far?
Change leadership is probably more important than the change. And also there is sometimes confusion. Is it project management or is it change management, or what is change and what is project? It's intertwined. You cannot separate this. And I have never had a separate plan. This is a change plan, this is a project plan. Coming back to this later, but change leadership if the leader is not driving that change. And it doesn't mean that I'm standing behind a project manager. I need to demonstrate, I need to be a role model, I need to share insights as well as in empower people that the change can be done. So this is more important rather than all the tools and techniques, because it's an attitude on how I manage change.
Now, you have been working internationally. It's not just Germany or US. You've been going all around the world.
Yeah.
What is the definition you have seen on change management? What do they see as change management?
Interesting for the question. And it is a difference culturally. In some countries or cultures, it is embedded in their, I wouldn't say DNA, but on how they are socialized. If I just take Japan, if I ask them doing change management and giving them the methods and the tools that I'm using, or the attitude and what's behind, saying, well, we are all doing this. If I'm talking more to the Western world, so the US, Europe, even Latin America, then you need to have sort of a definition, or you need to get a common understanding what is change. And to me, change is, or change management is supporting and helping people from going from one state to a new state, which is preferably better for the business. And often this is being done just be announcing it and that's it because everybody understands, which is different because you need to give people time to digest and as well what does this mean to them.
Now, you have seen, I have seen, there are studies that say that 70% of the change management initiative fail
Mhm.
or not successful. What could be the pattern there? What could be the cause there?
Well, according to studies, it's one thing. Usually, it's you need to create alliances in the leadership as well as you need to involve people and share vision and the urgency why you want to do that. Why do you want to do the change? Probably some of the main reasons is that change projects are not, well, there's long-term oriented. And if a project is too long in a schedule, so we are starting now and in 3 years we want to implement the change, people are getting sort of tired and they do not focus anymore on it. I would rather keep the change goal as more as a vision goal and then work on digestible ways and formats and timeframes, in particular like half a year, max a year, on what can I change within that year to achieve the long-term goal. Then the success is much better rather than I'm working already for the long-term goal and have activities scheduled for a longer time frame. So
Got it.
this is one of the main reasons I see. So the timing of the activities, people are getting tired. Yep.
When do you where do you see the leadership getting involved? Should they get involved in every step or initially, or what's your take? What have you seen? I'm talking about leadership from the point of, see, there are various levels of leadership
Yeah.
in the change management, such as sponsors, and then you come as middle manager, where you actually help people take from point one to point two.
Mm.
What is the leadership involvement you have seen, where it is effective?
Let's start from, and let's take a typical project where it is a corporate initiative, and the corporate initiative usually needs to be inspired by the top leadership. So there should be a top leader sponsor who outlines and explains what's the urgency, why we are doing that, as well as where we want to be. I, in this case, I wouldn't go on that level, not in an operational detail plan. Well, these are the activities that we are doing. This should be actually done and communicated more from a middle management and a strong involvement. The also what the leader can help with is to connect the dots. What I mean by that, first from a business perspective, which is usually their home base or home ground, but also connect the dots in discussion with the employees. What does it mean to them?
Yeah,
Often the transfer is not being done, or I'm communicating we need to get more efficiency, or
right.
we need to have soft cost savings. But when I hear both, in particular cost saving, this means, you could release people, you can fire people. Efficiency, maybe you implement more computers. That means also, or robots. That means also you retire me maybe earlier. If you can clarify what it means to me in a dialogue, it is much better rather I'm just announcing things. So usually people, and that happens, you need to be able to process the information and what it means to yourself. So there needs to be a certain purpose, a reason for why should I move forward and not just like in the interest of the organization. And there's a big role then for all levels of leaders. It could be in a cascade. That means the top leaders informing, and maybe there's as well a kind of a, let's say, working session with the middle management leaders because they need to understand this as well. If they didn't or do not buy in, actually they cannot explain it to their employees.
Right.
So you need to have this kind of common understanding as well as creating a common sense and purpose that they are able to explain and to engage with their employees. The last thing what I can see is important for leaders to empower and enable employees really to bring them on board in that change process. Often I can see they're telling and they're saying, well, we need to send you to a training.
Yeah.
Better is if you have a more kind of collaboration. Also in the change process as such, I have usually a loop back
Right.
where I ask employees, what do you need in
Right.
particular to move forward in that change?
Right.
And in one of the projects I had feedback, we would like to talk to our direct managers
Right.
1 hour per week. This was an organization, a department
Mm-hmm.
of 60 people,
Mm-hmm.
all in one room, because we heard a lot, but we don't know really what it means.
Mm-hmm.
So we would like to really nail it down to get a better understanding, and as well, what does it mean to us?
Yeah.
The leaders in that particular example were not really amused because they
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
had a kind of uncomfortable feeling they're being grilled.
Mm-hmm.
The first hour was pretty hot, in particular also from a space perspective, because this was an ordinary office space where usually 4 people have their desks in. There were 30 people in that room, including the leaders, and they had just a discussion. It took almost an hour and a half, but after, let's say, 4 weeks, it took only 30 minutes, and usually only 15 to 20 people were showing up. So it shows me the engagement increased dramatically, and people felt much more comfortable. They can ask critical questions. How do you want to organize? How do you want to structure? What's the
Right.
impact on me? And they can make up their mind for their particular job.
Right. Right. So what I'm hearing is collaboration,
Yep.
honesty,
Yep.
openness, trust.
Yep.
Because if people don't trust their leadership, the change is not going to go well. If leaders are not open and honest with what's happening
Yep.
politically or even functionally, then people
Yep.
won't buy in that change. Would
Right.
you involve, and how do you know that the change is successful? Where do you create that measure?
So from a timing perspective, as you just said, I'm asking right from the beginning on how you measure your business.
Right.
And if you're talking about clear numbers like revenues or complaint rates, customer tickets,
Right.
efficiency, process change, this would be probably the measures that I would use at the end.
Okay.
However, I would go also into leading and lagging indicators in
Right.
between, because right from the beginning, you cannot say, well, we would like to have a process improvement by
Right.
5 minutes
Right.
in the in a single working step. So therefore, we need to start what's the lagging indicator, what's the leading indicator to really increase the time or
Right.
reduce the time. Also, what kind of behavior should be demonstrated at the end.
Right.
Even if I reduce the complaints rate from clients, then it's one thing, that's the hard measure. However, I need to have some behavioral differences from employees showing up at the client side. So it could be even like we all start with the same opening, welcoming here at our company,
Right.
or you're talking to Mr. So and so, how can I help you with? So these are standards. However, this improves. Never yell at a customer.
Right.
Never piss them off.
Right.
Always show understanding. Another example, which I find very interesting, talking to a telecom service provider,
Mm-hmm.
take the Deutsche Telekom for instance, and you have a complaint at, like a typical customer, whatever, the rate is not working or the bandwidth is not good enough. Usually they come in and saying, well, if I would be you, I had once such a tele manager. He said, if I would be you, I probably would have already canceled the contract with Telekom. And actually, he is working for Deutsche Telekom. So showing the empathy in that context, and this is the behavior, the leading and the lagging indicator,
Right.
that behavior that you would like to see. So you need to describe not just the measure, the hard facts, but also what kind of behavior leads to that. And it's not just like we have a value list. It is really kind of what is exactly different when we implemented this from a behavioral perspective. So this is on, usually I discuss this with people. I have right now a client where they should work more internationally. So they have
Okay.
4 sites: Germany, Belgium, France, the Netherlands, and usually the Germany is the headquarter. They are not very cooperative. They're kind of putting the elbows out, and well, if they say that, well, we'll do anyhow what we want.
Right.
Um, and would be to me a measure how we collaborate better. And this needs to be defined together in a setting. And could be one of the activities in a change process.
Right. Right. And where does your change canvas come in the picture? Do you actually take them through the change canvas first, or you have a conversation? How do you make use of that?
A good question. Thank you very much. The change canvas is actually you can say it's a project one pager,
Okay.
just from a change perspective, more qualitative, and actually some of the fields are more stable rather than others. And in a change canvas, you're starting with the urgency. Well, I'm guiding them through. Well, this is the change canvas, which helps you creating transparency in your organization, which again, coming back to the point, gives stability to the people in the process, and as well creating understanding, because you have all the necessary information on one page, and not just like in a typical project one pager, slightly different. You have the urgency, you're starting with the urgency. Next thing is, where do you want to be? And then after that, you have the strategy. And again, it is for a corporation, usually the one pager is a little bit too small. Usually it's being backed up field by field with a couple of slides. And let me just share with you it, even though it is, where is it?
Right.
You're starting with the red side, which is the urgency, and the green one is where you want to be. It's the vision. In the middle, you have the strategy, the ways to get there, and there are always supporting questions. The yellow part is primarily everything which is related to people, like who are the stakeholders, who are the people who are involved with, what is their personhood, their understanding, their self-confidence, how do we want to lead change management or the change process, and then we have the communication piece here on the bottom. The
Got it.
blue part is everything around process, how to measure, how does success look like, and what are the different activities. And this, as I just introduced this to you, usually I'm doing this as well to the leadership, but then we're working step by step with the leadership on the top part, but also with the project teams more on the operation on the yellow and on the blue part.
Right. Just for the sake of audience clarification, what
Yeah,
we'll do
sure.
is, as part of the video, we will also put the picture on the side, on the corner, as you explain, so that it will be easier for them to understand. And we will point it to back to your website so that
Sure.
they can come to you if they have any more questions. Having said this, have you seen where you have to uh, tell client, or you started the engagement, and you know their behavior is not supportive enough for change management, and then you had to abandon that project, and you had to say, come on guys, I mean, you need change management consultant, but I don't think you are ready for me. Has this happened to you?
Um, sort of, but
Okay.
not completely. Sort of what I mean is, I was working once with a client. He said, well, Frank, we need you for the next 4 months
Yeah.
to implement a change. It was a reorganizational change from a
Right.
country organization to a matrix. Uh, matter expertise, end-to-end processes, this rather than having this in each of the countries. We had this more on a central level. We supported and helped and enabled and this was right before Christmas, where we knew the organization will be implemented on January 1st. So we prepped everything for January 1st, and then we were out as consultants. We said, thank you very much. Great working with you. The consultant and that I was working with, we said, well, what do you think? When are they coming back? Because they said, well, change is over. We implemented everything. Well, from a systematical part, yes, it was being implemented. However, the change just started for the people.
Yeah.
And they came back 3 months later. Hey, Frank, it's not working as we supposed to work. Can you come back? Can you help us in moving forward? And then we had additional activities in collaboration, in engagement, to really bring the people from the old working style into a new working style. So that's the reason why I meant, well, they didn't kick me out. However, they said, well, change is done. We don't need you anymore.
Right. And sometimes the client thinks that they can do it themselves.
And it's fine if they can do it, fine. But I often recognize they do it not with the same passion and with the same, I wouldn't say commitment, it's the wrong word, but with the same continuity and as well using methodologies or interactions where you involve people. Often, and this is probably business related in general, they are working on the what,
Right.
less on the how. And the how is, to me, as important because this is on how I'm working. I'm working in a process. So that means I need to understand, I need to make up my mind, I need to help and support. And what does this mean to me? So this is, and this usually it's being forgotten.
Where do you see, or how do you see that this change management practice will be flourishing? And what's your take on that? That is, I'm on the mission of where I want to ignite this fire of change leadership more than change management, because I don't know what we are actually managing in change. What's your take on that? Where do you see this going in the future?
Inspiring more the change in leadership, or that all leaders, if they want it or if they don't want it, they are anyhow initiating changes.
Right.
Doesn't matter whether they're using methodology or not. So even if a new leader is coming into a company or a new team lead is coming in, usually would like to leave their footprint in that team. And what I've observed in the last couple of years, a lot of people took change management classes. So theoretically, often people know on what needs to be done.
Right.
What I encourage the leaders that I'm talking to, working on it sounds again repetitive, working on the attitude on how do you drive change in general. So how do you want to go through change? Do you just want to be told this is on what you need to do tomorrow? Or do you want to have an engagement and dialogue to understand why changes are being done? And coming more from a communications perspective, people are more open to discuss, even in trainings, in seminars, how can they communicate their changes to their people? How can they get involvement? And we're talking again about the targeting of their team leads, as well as usually I'm doing often storytelling with them rather than just communicating the facts and figures. What is the story behind, as well as what kind of story can they share personally in relationship to that, which makes them more tangible. So it's really kind of personal development of a leader to show up in front of a group and not being shy or anxious that people can approach them. One example, I was in a big leadership conference in one of my corporate lives, and the leaders came in all over the world. They had, after the first day in the evening, no, after the first day in the evening, they were being told tonight, so it was probably about 5 o'clock, tonight you will meet employees all over the campus.
Mhm.
There are predefined coffee corners. People will go there. Everybody of you will have a clear direction where they need to go. You don't know who is in that corner,
Mhm.
and they will ask you on what's going on in this meeting.
Mhm.
You can immediately sense in the entire audience they were kind of nervous.
Right.
What's going on? Oh, what do they want to ask me? How
Right.
how can I respond? Do I say the
Right.
truth? And surprisingly, on the other day, of course, we asked them how was it going last night
Right.
with the employees who you never saw before, and they were asking you questions. And they said, well, we were surprised.
Right.
First, they were all polite. They didn't really kill us. They didn't
Right.
come with kind of killer questions.
Right.
Often they were more and better informed about the subject than we as a leader.
Right.
Astonishing. And they went out with a very positive feeling after the conversation with the
Right.
employees.
Right.
And this I can encourage any leader. Don't be shy. Go to employees, talk to them.
Right.
They're open, they're willing
Right.
to share.
Right. Frank, any last words of wisdom before we close the session?
In regards to change leadership, I would say, which I repeated a little bit in our session already, but being authentic, even though it sounds easy, but fair and open to your employees, because this gives them the stability and trust that you need to manage the change. Secondly, having an open conversation in both ways to really understand what's being needed from the organization to make this change happen. And lastly, I think the continuity is important. Usually we lose interest after a certain period of time. And it is important that we remember ourselves as well as the employees on a regular basis to continually manage that change or make it happen. And not just like after 3 months we change direction and everything is done. So these are the three topics that I thought might be interesting leaving our conversation today.
Absolutely. What I'm hearing is your project for change may get over, but the journey for change adoption will continue because people have to evolve and internalize that change that you are looking for. And ultimately, that becomes a culture of the company because that's the way we
Yep.
behave and act on. And change journey will continue for a little longer time than your project management activities that you actually try and do.
There are three topics that I actually would like to share as services. One is the traditional change consulting. I'm helping you to support you in business that you're achieving the change that you would like to have. Either it's a transformation or whether it's just an organizational or structural change or even an implementation of a software. The second thing that I'm supporting is to enabling teams, kind of team building, global teams, remote teams, either online or in person. I have great experience in that. So really kind of helping you becoming or getting a wonderful high performing team. And the third thing is actually I helping leaders in terms of coaching them and as well educating and sharing insights on how you become a better leader in your field. So these are the type of services. Looking forward hearing from you. And again, Sandeep, thank you very much for having the opportunity today talking with you about change leadership.
Frank, thank you very much. I hope this was helpful for all the audience here. And let's continue this change leadership mission for the next generations to come. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Sandeep.
All right.